Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein here. Welcome to our Life West Leadership Line. Today, as you can see on my screen, I have Dr. Martin Rosen, but we'll say Dr. Marty, because that's how I know you, Marty, and we're on a first-name basis. Marty Rosen has been doing amazing work in the SOT, Sacral Occipital Technique world, along with research and doing all kinds of things. He'll go into it, writing books and courses and all kinds of stuff. A brief history just about Marty. We were in school together. He started school in Sherman. He transferred over to Life Chiropractic College at the time and graduated in December of 1981. We were just a quarter apart. He was with his wife, Nancy. And since then, they practiced in Massachusetts. We were together in Massachusetts, Marty, right?
That's right.
We were there together when we first got out. And then, since has had kids. In fact, one of his daughters is Dr. Erin, and she graduated in 2013. And so he's got chiropractic in his blood, and he's a New Englander. And Marty, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Ron. Great to see you again. And I like the way you look there in California. You guys are always so tan. We're always so pale here in New England.
Hey, you know what? It's the lighting. I'm telling you. It's
it is.
Lighting.
I changed my lighting. I should have done that.
And it's the lack of hair. I want you to know that, I can probably get tan in in a snowstorm just because of, not having anything protecting me. But let's jump into it. Let's talk about SOT and share with us and our viewers, what the path has been. Because I know you were involved in SOT from college.
For a long time.
Yep. And then, you became president of Sorcy and was working with Soto and all these initials. Tell us about this alphabet soup.
Yeah, I'll give you the short version.
Yeah.
Short version with Sherman. As Ron said, I transferred to Life. I got turned on to SOT by my wife. We taught our first SOT seminar actually in Sherman. I think it was in 1979. We taught our very first seminar. So I've been teaching since 1979. I got involved with Jeanne. I found him to be an incredible mentor and just an amazing man. So he started SOT seminars. He graduated school in 1924, and he started an organization or working organization called Sorcy. At one point took over his work. I was a member of Sorcy. I was the president of their research board. I wrote the first pediatric program that they ever had. Jeanne was a genius and understood the importance of pediatric chiropractic care, but given the fact of where he was as far as starting school in 1924 and trying to get his technique out, he wrote very little about pediatric care, but understood that primary subluxation occurred before the first 7 years of life, and if that subluxation was left uncorrected, it would be a source of stimulus throughout life. That was his quote. So I stayed with Sorcy for 20 years. Over 20 years, I wrote their program for the pediatric chiropractic based on SOT, and then in the late 90s, like 1999, 2000, another organization was being formed that was focused more on teaching, which is what I wanted to do. It's called Soto USA, and they asked me to join them, so I joined them, and I started what's called Regional Seminar Management, which was their teaching program to help spread SOT and pediatrics throughout the world. We ran a 3 certification series for SOT spinal, SOT cranial, and pediatrics, which is still available. I have now taken the pediatric program and run with it. I've also taught for the ICPA for about 15 years. So teaching has always been my thing. That's where my focus has always been, and I've been doing it. And up till the COVID thing, we've been teaching an average of twice a month all over the world, everywhere from Australia, New Zealand, Spain, and everywhere in the United States. So that's who I am. That's what I do. And my wife has been there with me by my side and with me the entire time.
Yeah, yep. I love it. Listen, not kudos, but when you look at our class that graduated and what people are doing, I think that's what happens when you get old, right? Yeah. When you've been in this profession for 40, almost 40 years, we're going on our 40th year, it's amazing. And Marty, thank you for the work you're doing. Just to clear up for our listeners, because there's Sorcy, there's Soto. Right. Break down those initials.
Sorcy is called Sacro-Occipital Research Society International. Originally, Jeanne started his thing, which was Soto USA, which is Sacral-Occipital Technique Organization in the United States. As he got older, Jeanne passed away in 1992 at 92. Sorcy took over his work somewhere in the 80s, probably 82 to 84, basically because he was getting older. He wasn't able to manage all the logistics. And so he signed away a lot of his work for them to be the people to produce his stuff. And they did a great job for years, but their ability to promote his work and keep it alive and keep it going was starting to get weaker. Their numbers were dropping at their seminars. So a group of us felt like we needed to continue the legacy of Jeanne. That was a promise I made to myself the day he died, that I would keep his legacy alive as long as I could. So SOTO USA is Sacro-Occipital Technique Organization of the United States, just a name that we put together. And we also have access to all Jeanette's work as well. And we teach our seminars based on his work, except obviously for new stuff that's been added over the years with other research in pediatrics. So, and there are international organizations. There's SOTO Europe, there's SOTO Australia. They're all SOT, Sacro-Occipital Technique Organization of whatever country you are.
Right.
And, people have formed that. So we're kind of a giant worldwide family trying to keep Major's work alive.
I love it. Yeah. And of course, there's no politics, right?
Everybody's really good friends with each other. We love each other. Yeah, because chiropractors never shoot each other in the foot. Ever.
Never. But it's interesting too, because I know, and you mentioned this, originally that you taught for the ICPA, and I know that you and Jeanne were close, and Nancy, of course, was close with Jeanne.
Yep.
And that was so cool because you're on the road for them along with, right?
Long time at the same time. Yep.
Yeah.
Same time I was running both seminar. I wasn't running the ICPA. I was teaching for both organizations and teach my own SOT and pediatrics. And the ICPA was a gift, I think, to the chiropractic profession. It was a gift to me. It gave me a venue to help people, because my ICPA seminar was a basic seminar for understanding the SOT principles, and it gave me a jumping off point. And Jeanne was just absolutely amazing. I still tear up every time I forget that she's not with us anymore. But it was ICPA. My experience with the ICPA was nothing less than phenomenal. And the only reason I stopped teaching is, as Ron mentioned, we do get a little older, and teaching for the ICPA, a dozen times a year, and then trying to teach my seminars. And at one point I was out 28 weekends a year teaching and running a full-time practice, and just the logistic taking its toll.
And having kids too, and all that stuff.
Well, the kids were in there too. The kids, I had two daughters. One, as Ron told you, is a chiropractor, and another one who lives in Colorado, my older daughter, and she has run the Institute for Psychology of Eating for years. She's kind of a Renaissance woman. She runs 5 different businesses in Colorado. She's amazing, as well as my other daughter. And so, having kids and trying to keep a relationship going.
Yeah, keep life going.
We just celebrated our 40th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I think that's a milestone. That's at least in charity.
It is, and Nancy kept you. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
I think her and Mary must talk quite a bit, because I'm certainly blessed that Mary's keeping me around. And when you mentioned Jeanne, I just want to show our viewers this. This sits on my desk, and I get to watch it, get to look at it every day, right? And it says underneath it, Life Expresses Intelligence, because that was Jeanne's thing, So, she's in all of our hearts, and what she's done. It's my wish, if I had a wish, that in 30, 40 years, people will be talking about Jeanne Ohm like we talk about Gonstead and DeJarnette and, Thompson and other people, that kind of stuff, because what Jeanne did for pediatrics. Share with us this, because I know you've been doing a lot of work on research. You've written, courses, and you've done stuff. And I think one of the big things is, the CSF work that's been done, right? The cerebral spinal fluid. Share with us the work that's gone and chiropractic's role with it.
So as early as 1972, people in the osteopathic world, people like Ledger and people in chiropractic, have been talking about cerebral spinal fluid. The medical world has just been thinking of it as a protective barrier within the dermomeningeal system, mostly a chemical protective barrier, maybe a physical protective barrier. And for years and years, we've been screaming at the top of our lungs how important CSF is, that it, temperature gradient, brings in nutrition, is the lymphatic system for the central nervous system, is a chemical buffer and a barrier, that it is a lifeblood fluid. It would be no different cutting CSF to your brain and central nervous system than cutting blood supply off to your limbs or your organs. And in 2000, 15, I think it was the University of Pennsylvania, I forgot which study, they wrote this big thing and they put, we have to change the textbooks. We have just discovered this amazing fluid, CSF, that is the central nervous system, lymphatic system. And of course, then some people started listening to it after us screaming about it for 40 years. But basically, there's been a huge amount of study on CSF and how it is mitigated throughout the system, how it is produced, how it changes, also its effect on the central nervous system. There was a study in 2013, 2017 that based a study on neurodevelopmental disorders and autism, and they found that if they could do MRIs of the ventricles in the cranium, see increased CSF in kids between the ages of 6 to 12, they had a 70% diagnostic rate to know that these children would be autistic by the time they're 2 years old from increased CSF in their brain and central nervous system.
So what time period was that? If they're saying that they can look at that, that means that they would want to do that MRI when?
Well, between 6 to 12 months of age.
And they could predict what would happen.
They would predict if that did not change by the time 24 months came around, the kid was 2 years old, it would be a 70% higher incidence of those kids becoming autistic. They also determined that increased CSF, basically the inability for the body to exchange the fluids, because CSF exchanges 4 times a day in your system. The inability of the body to exchange that and have increased CSF basically means the body's not getting its nutrition, it's getting toxins. They also suggested that it's related to every single autoimmune disease, including things like ALS, MS, that decreased CSF flow or stagnation of CSF flow is directly related to these autoimmune diseases, and that every neurological disease, because they phase the central nervous system, has some connection to CSF. And these are medical studies that they've been doing for years. Then they did respiratory studies saying that increased respiration could make more CSF available into the ventricles, which is what chiropractors have been saying. When you make an adjustment, we know how it changes people's fascia, the transverse fascial planes. The biggest one is the diaphragm. So it increases oxygenation to the brain. So we are the only profession, or I guess I feel osteopaths, of course, they do as well, because they work with the dermal system, that actually work with it in a non-invasive way. In other words, in the medical profession, they find increased CSF, you put a shunt in. Or you give them or if there's something damage in the spinal cord or damage to the dermal system, it's a surgical intervention. We as a profession have known for years that even if you're not doing cranial work, which is something that I do a lot, even if you're just dealing with the upper cervical spine, where the strongest dural attachments are, clearing out C1, C2, dealing with that area of the brain changes the movement of CSF as well as changes blood supply to the brain, which is part of the ability where CSF gets some of its fluids from. It's from blood flow. So it's just a simple fact that a chiropractic adjustment anywhere in the spine, because the dura attaches from the coccyx through every single dura port all the way up to the base of the skull, to the falx cerebri, to the tentorium, and in pediatric practice before the sutural system as it comes up and forms the periosteum in the cranium. Anywhere that you touch and make a corrective impulse into the spine and change tension in the dermal system, you change the flow of CSF, you change tension on the nerves, and you change the way the body transmits impulses.
Absolutely.
Really that simple.
And Marty, I know you've seen these before. Scott Rosa, phenomenal, video fluoroscopy, MRIs, right?
Yeah.
Showing after an upper cervical adjustment, the CSF is flowing, the ventricles are pumping, stuff like that. We know that in network spinal analysis, you watch the body change and there's tension going off the dura.
Tension membranes.
Yep. You watch SOT. We've known for years about that with SOT, right? Just the sacral occipital pump, right? And the things that are happening. So it's always been there.
Yeah.
But now this research comes out and actually shows what we're doing. And if we can tie, if A plus B, then it equals C, right?
Right. So SOT doctors are known to being a little nuts. So a friend of mine.
I think chiropractors in general.
Yes, it is. And then, but then there's it's like, Democrat and Republican parties. We have the middle, then we have the ends. And so SOT is kind of like, so in 1986, a friend of mine, Vinny Esposito, had a friend who was a radiologist, worked with, and he climbed into an MRI machine and they put blocks on people and he started doing cranial work, and they took MRI videos of the changes in the ventricles while he was doing the adjustments. And we saw changes in the ventricles, and I know he still has it, but the chiropractic profession, our problem is that we can't get the bucks to get the big bang. So like I said, he had that in 86. You're talking about other studies that we saw that. Yeah, we talk about, I know Donnie has tried for years and years and years, and he's made some inroads, but still, if you talk to the man on the street, we have, but you're right. But the research is even, we don't even have to do the research anymore.
No,
we don't have to do the research. The only thing we have to show is that, D.D. Palmer talked about it. Alf Brigg talked. D.D. Palmer said it's tension. Alf Brigg said adverse mechanical tension in the central nervous system. A nerve that's under traction causes immediate pathophysiological damage to that nerve root and its ability to transmit impulses.
Yeah.
So tight nervous system, tight nerves, breaks down the myelin sheath. I mean, we know all this stuff, which makes it a little frustrating for me, and that's why my voice is rising up. Because, it's there. The stuff is there. You and I have been literally screaming this for 40 years.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I had Didi Umber on the leadership line,
Yep.
right? And one of the things that he said was that that he's now almost 60-something years in the profession, and his one wish was that the message was changed of how the public views chiropractic, right?
Right.
Because they still view it, of course, as neck and back pain and headaches, and they're starting to get more and more. But
you get a little colic, you get a little this.
Exactly. But what they don't know, is about this neurological health and this bathing of the nervous system and cerebral spinal fluid and the things like you just talked about,
Right.
the myriad of issues that can happen from
Right.
from this, right? When it's malfunctioning, right? And what a subluxation does and how we can clear that and allow the body to start functioning normally.
So I have a question for you, because I know you for a really long time. You're out there all the time. You're extremely personable to people. So do people, Joe Felicia in the 80s said people want wellness, and I believed it. So you're out there. Do people want to know that? Because the educational process is so hard. Like, they want to go online and get fit. So I guess, and we can have this conversation another time. How do we take that information, which we know is so valuable? It happens in your practice all the time. You're just a family member. You get one kid who literally can't walk, can't talk, and within 6 weeks of chiropractic care, he's walking, talking, and then the family quits care because it's too busy because they have to go to soccer practice with the other kids.
Right.
So what we need is some way to codify that information in a way that the average person can really get. Because you and I know it, and we talk about it. We know how important it is. That's why we're still here after 40 years. Neither of us have to do this anymore. We can both go sit on an island together, play some golf and, do whatever we want to do. And Jeanne was the same way. I mean, she pushed herself literally to the end. And so we need to, our profession, my experience is that our profession really needs to find a way to codify this information and give it to the average person and really get it so they understand what we're doing. Because the insurance companies are never going to do that. The internet gives you so many bits that people just pick up on those bits. I mean, these days, my pediatric practice has always been family practice. Now we get dozens of people who just find us on the internet and find some symptom, bring the kid in, I have tongue tie, my kid can't nurse, and then when that goes away, they tend to drift away. So I don't know.
I think, do you remember when we were in school? I'll take us back to 1979, 1980, 81, with Dr. Williams, right? Dr.
Sure.
Sid at the college. He was always talking in those days about spinal hygiene. And remember that? He'd be at seminar and talk about spinal hygiene. And where I believe he was coming from, and I think somewhere in the past I got this verified, the dentists did it.
Yeah, did it.
And they talked about dental hygiene. And it became very important to have 2 checkups a year and get your teeth scaled and cleaned. And that, I believe in those days, Dr. Sid, that's where he was coming from, about spinal hygiene. Yeah, so that became a regular part, a routine part of somebody's life, right? Yeah. And we've just never been able to get there. I mean, Marty.
Dentists, you're right. Dentists marketed it. They did that. They increased their public outreach by 50%. 50% of the population, regardless of how much money they have, goes to the dentist twice a year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
If we had a 50, what are we at? Like 6%, 7%? Maybe, we don't know. Everybody makes
we're higher than that, but they try to.
In the United States, maybe we're higher than that, but
around the world, yeah.
So what I'm saying, if we had 50%, there would never be enough chiropractors. We would not have enough time to adjust those people. If we had 20% of the population, the schools would be burgeoning with people clamoring to get in because So yeah, I guess
when you talk to the marketers, right? The market, just non-chiropractic, but know how to market,
right?
They would say, no one understands, nor could they even communicate the word subluxation, right? So when you talk to them, and chiropractors don't want to hear that, right? And then, when you talk about how do we get it so that we could be like the dentists and, and just get this message across so people are getting checked even once a month, just have their
a limit, right?
Yeah, just do that. So I think it's something that really needs to be looked at. And then other groups come out and say, what's critical mass? We get to the tipping point of 18%.
The 100th monkey thing. And
the 100th monkey. And I'm not discounting any of that, but it's something that we haven't done. But like you said earlier, we need to get our profession all in alignment, trying to move toward the same goal, right? And make that happen. It's been a very difficult journey.
I was at the RAC conference. I had a presentation at the RAC conference, and one of the meeting rooms, which I missed, sadly for me, probably my wife was very happy, they were discussing getting rid of the term subluxation. And one of the people who were in the room came out, and he had caught me. He said, "Hey, Marty, how you doing?" And showed my president. He goes, I was just at that subluxation conference, changing the word, I said, why do you want to change that? I said, look, you have pain, right? It's an abnormal motion in a joint. You have pain, right? Yeah, pain. Does your body know about it? Absolutely. Does your body respond to it? Absolutely. Does it respond by creating increased impulse? Does it respond by tightening muscles? Does it respond by creating compensatory changes? Does it respond by changing blood flow? He goes, yeah, of course it does. Even if you stub your toe, that all happens. I said, well, then what the hell are you complaining about? That's what a subluxation is. Right. It's an abnormal emotional that has a plethora of sequences that occur after it. The longer it stays there, the more those sequences change, leading to histological changes. And why are you guys arguing something that you're agreeing with, even if it's neck and back pain? If you have a pain in the neck, do you get irritable? Of course you do. If you have a pain in the neck, you get irritable. It affects your emotional being. It affects the way your dopamine inhibitors and neurotransmitters work. That's all we're saying. And he's like, oh. Yeah. And then my wife pulled me away.
Well, let me share with you. Here's the thing. The chiropractors, and I know this because I was one of them, right? I am one of them, right? But when I was practicing, I was like, we wanted people to understand the word vertebral subluxation, right? And what it is. And the truth is, you ask most people what an incisor is, and they'd have no idea. The dentists don't have to go around talking about incisors and talking about, different nomenclature they may use. Right. We haven't ever put that message out about spinal hygiene. We haven't put that message about cerebral spinal fluid, about flowing nerve. We were too engrossed on having our roots be based in nomenclature, right? Which I agreed on some level, and I still do.
I did too.
But it's not the most important thing. If we want to get the world under care, it's not about making sure they know how to spell the word subluxation. It's really about knowing about what's going on inside their body and what we do as chiropractors.
Here's a perfect example of that. I was maybe 5-6 years in the practice, whatever it was. And my mom had come up, and my parents were not into alternative care. My mom was just, typical Jewish mother. My son's a doctor. She once asked me if I believed in hands-on healing. I'm like, that's what I do. But so she didn't get, but the point that you're making, so I sent her to a chiropractor that I knew in New York, because that's where I'm from. That's where she was. And he used to do spinal care classes, like we all did, right? And so she calls me up. And she's really first. She goes, I don't understand. I said, why? She goes, your friend, he goes, took care of me, he's great, but he said I have submarines in my spine. I said, what? He goes, yeah, he said I have these little submarines in my spine. And I'm like, okay, my mother may not have been the brightest human being, but she had she got from the lay lecture that she had little submarines in her spine.
Right.
I said, well, Dad was in World War II. Make sure you get those submarines out of there.
Well, and that's been, I really believe that. I believe that's been part of our issue on some level, but I think we keep that within ourselves. And I think that, to me, a subluxation is vital, right? And I would never want to change the name of that, never want to change the name of an adjustment, never want to change any of that. That's who we are, right? But what we communicate. And you know what the crazy thing is, which can kind of lead us to our next topic, just about, where we see the future in chiropractic, because the research that you're doing and that, Sorcy did and all this other stuff and pulling the research from the medics, right, around cerebral spinal fluid and all this work that's happening, there's so much great stuff out there. Like, we just got to collect that all and have one archival. Maybe this is something I need to do for the college, have one place that archives all this information that our profession can come to and be able to grab it, because we don't have that, right?
Well, the SOT stuff, I have to say that Dr. Charles Blum, who's the chairman of SOTA USA Research, he has tried to do that. He's trying to do it on his website. And I send people to him all the time. I just sent somebody there. We taught a seminar this weekend, and one of the young men came actually from, Palmer West, but that's where he came from. Anyhow, he was really into CSF research, and he asked me, I was doing my lecture, and I had stuff obviously on CSF, and I said, I'll give you mine, but, talk to Dr. Blum. So he's trying to codify and put that kind of stuff all together. So we do need places where we have that, where people can go and pull up that research, and where we can use that research. I think, if the research is there, I once talked to Joel Alcantara, who's the research director of the ICPA, you know that. And I was talking to him about a research project, and I wanted to do like this 5-year study on, activities of daily living and people and how they get healthier under chiropractic care and how things change and this all. And he said, that's great, Marty. He goes, would you willing to put some money to it? And I said, absolutely, Joel, I would do that. How much would it cost? He said, it would cost you $195 million. Yeah. I went, I don't have that much money. But the bottom line is, if we could take all the stuff that we already have and codify the part just that we do and make it inroad, because you're right, it would cost $195,000 to get the MRI studies, to get the fluoroscopy studies, to get, all this stuff. But if that stuff is there already, we can just find a way to see how we affect those channels.
Absolutely. And the other part about that is that if we had all this codified and people knew this, we could take that information out then and go to the National Institute of Health and put in for these kind of grants, right? Because we already have this, and now we just want to expand on that, right? To actually be able to show more with newer technology, whatever the reasoning is, right? And just keep growing it like that. So it's awesome. I love what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think the only other thing we need to do is figure a way that the medical profession can make money off of us, and then we're golden.
Well, if you can figure that out, man.
Right, because then we're golden. Then they'll support us. But it's just, their thing is if we're right, then they lose money.
Yeah.
But I know that. Yeah, it's a frustrating experience, but when I talk to you and I talk to other people and I talk to Peter Kevorkian, all of us and Patty, we've all been through this and we're still practicing 40 years. There's still that spark. Or even someone like Matthew McCoy, Matthew's out there still plugging away. I still get like 12 emails a day from Matthew, chiropractic and this, chiropractic and that. And so we're still out there plugging. We do need to find a way to pass the gauntlet to a generation that knows how to market it better than we did.
Yes, I agree. And the interesting thing about the new generation, they're coming out really understanding brain, right? Really understanding, like you just talked about, brain and spinal cord. It's not so much, bone out of place, causing pressure on the nerve, and the way, and I'm sure you could do this with your daughter, Erin, and I can do it with my 3 daughters, right? And their husbands. They just communicate it differently, but they communicate it very eloquently. And the message is simple and it's very congruent with what we do. It's just not that old communication that we grew up with,
Well, Erin has talked, I don't know if I should admit this, but I still use my 1984 Renaissance video on spinal degeneration to show people before they look at the x-rays. And my daughter won't do it anymore. She goes, Dad, the people I see, because she's seen them, they think it's absurd. And some guy just showed me, he's a 40-something-year-old, he goes, nice video, when was that? I said, but what he said to me, what I liked about it and why I only reason I usually put the information he said is really good. It's the one with James Newell. It's not the fancy one, it's just with this guy talking and showing you spines and showing you levels. But that's kind of information we need. But you're right, my daughter most of the time won't use it and communicates much differently, but she should.
Yeah, she should. And, when my kids came into practice, right, my oldest and her husband, because they were the first to graduate, it was like, we don't need that poster. And this poster is ridiculous. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've had that up for ever. And they're looking at it through such a different lens, right? It's just so cool. I will share with you.
What my daughter to do is to stop rearranging the furniture and the table.
There you go. There you go.
Out of my knees and stuff. I said, Erin, this is like going to a blind man's house who's lived there 38 years and moving his living room furniture. So she said, all right, fine, I won't move everything.
Well, I will share with you a tidbit that I historically was part of. When Renaissance, when Joe Felicia went to go talk to Russ Earhart, who was part of that video that you're talking about, the original X-ray video, right?
Right.
The report of findings video, we should say.
Report of findings, right?
Yeah, we were at a seminar in Atlanta, and you were probably there. And Joe came up to me in the back because there was 90% students in there. And Joe came to me and I said, "Ron, you have a car?" I go, "Yeah, I have a car." He goes, "Can you take me somewhere?" I go, "Yeah, where do you need to go?" And he goes, "Well, come on." And we left, and we drove to Russ Earhart's house.
Wow.
So that he could make the pitch to Russ about going to the Osmond Studios in Salt Lake City and doing that
Wow.
video, right? And so I'm kind of watching this stuff, not knowing really what's going on, but it was kind of fun to see that. And they actually, handshook on the deal right there, and then it was made like within the next, 6 months or something. But
That's cool.
but they were really ahead of their time because they were doing videos in those times that were rock star videos, which we were, we were just amazed at VHS tapes at the time. Like
I have my flip charts. I still have them. I should pull them out. You can all see them. I have my flip charts.
Isn't that great? And
I went high tech. I went with slides. I took pictures. I had a slide projector, and I had a patient. He actually had a built-in case for the slide projector because slide projectors make so much noise from the fan that it would make noise during my lecture. So he built in a case for it so I could do my slide projector without it making noise.
So now we're really showing how old we are, right? Because I don't think a lot of our younger viewers even know what a slide projector is.
I should have brought out my slides, my videos, my flip charts,
exactly.
VHS. Right.
Exactly. Well, Marty, listen, I want to thank you not just for who you are and what you've done in your community, because I know you've really made a huge imprint in your community in Boston, outside of Boston, but just for all the teaching you've done, the amount of people that you've trained over that last how many years, and what they've been able to do with that, right? Especially with children. It really is. It's just incredible. And you think about that, sometimes. And I just want you to just kind of take this in right now that, if you've got 1,000 people out there, I know you have more, but 1,000 people that you've trained that are literally taking care of newborns and creating that, doing the cranial work, whatever they're doing to create cerebral spinal fluid, and the amount that we can actually change that we're on their way to, whatever the problems were, the autism, whatever it is, autism, whatever, and it gets reversed that we will never know about. You've made a huge, huge impact, and I trust you're not going to stop anytime soon because, we need what you have.
I'm doing the best I can. We keep going, trying, and we're starting our series again in 2021. We have one more in 2020. So as soon as the world opens up, we'll be back out there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give a heads up right back to you, Ron. I know the work you've done for the years. I've always watched you and followed you, and it's dedicated people like you and taking on this job at Life. I mean, I know you didn't need it, and I know what a joy it is to be the president of a chiropractic college every day. No one ever gives you any crap or anything, and you could just, float along. So doing that too is just amazing, man. And I do wish we were closer together and we could hang out. And when we used to go Bel Cantos at night at the end of work.
Exactly it. Exactly down on Lexington Square. Exactly it. Well, listen, I appreciate it, and thank you for that. I think like both of us, we're just willing and ready to serve wherever it is that we need to serve, right? And we do this for the profession. We do this for the people. We do this for humanity, right? And it's really where it comes from. And I know there'll be people, like you said, who will step up in our positions and do that, and thankfully they will. But Marty, thank you. For our listeners, I'm going to put down underneath, where they can get a hold of you and any websites you have. My marketing department will have that already inlaid. So people reach out, or check in with them, with Marty, find out where he's going to be, what seminar you can take. You're never too young and you're never too old to learn some really cool stuff, Awesome. And Marty, well, I promise you, we're going to get you back up. I know your seminars are sold out anyways, but let's get more people to them. I always told you and Nancy, I want to get you to the college where you're teaching the kids, our students on a weekend, and be able to do that on a recurring level. We're talking about that right before COVID hit.
We were before this hit.
So we still got to circle back to that. Thank you for what you're doing. And to our viewers today, thank you for listening, and hopefully there'll be some gems that you'll be able to take out of this conversation. I know there are, so we'll be able to shoot you some ideas of where you can get information. And until we see you at our next leadership line, keep loving the people that you're with, live your life from above down, inside out, and never forget that, you've got a far greater intelligence within your body that enables your body to heal than we were ever led to believe, and keep spreading that message around so people know that, okay? So till our next leadership line, from myself and Dr. Marty, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care now.